Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Digital Services Forum bi-weekly meeting. Today, we're going to talk about some of this stuff will be review that I go through today, but we want to use it to kick off a series. So I'm going to bring a couple pieces together that we've been talking about over the last 6 months or 9 months or so, and use this as the start of a three-part series that we've been talking around digital products, because it sounds like that's where a lot of our questions are coming from right now. Are all around how do we get to digital products, or what are the digital products? What do we do with them? So I'm going to kind of recap some of the things, and some of these slides you might have seen already, but definitely stop me or drop questions in along the way if you have any questions. And one of the big things that when we switch to digital products, there's much more of a financial sense to what we're doing. And a lot of times those financials are left to the executives, and people that are working on the actual products and doing the releases don't actually see those financials. So that's one of the big shifts, is what are we spending and what's the value we're getting for that. So I'm going to use an example today just because it's public information. I'm going to use an example from a state and local government, but it's very similar in a lot of organizations as well. I talked to some people in manufacturing, people in financials, pharmaceuticals, and they're set up in a very similar way to the way state and local government's set up from a funding perspective. So before we start, if you are new to this group, I'm going to explain what it is at the end. We're not going to do all the intros in the beginning about what the group does. But if you could just drop your name in and let everybody know that you're new, and I'll show you more at the end on how you can get involved, how you can get to our shared instance, and then some resources on the community. But we do like everybody to introduce themselves if you're here for the first time. All right, so if we look at state and local government, and this could be the same for any industry, right? But I just want to give you a financial perspective from my side. I'm not the financial guy. We'll have some of them on next week. But I want to really talk about how we look at these when we're doing a product-driven organization. So if you start with all state and local government technology, hardware, software, services, network, and communications, about $134 billion gets spent every year. And that's going up, pretty regularly, but that's the 2023 spend. Now what happens, and just like in any organization, right, if we're in manufacturing, if we're in different places, there'll be a split of that goes to different places. So because of the way government's split up, they'll give part of it to state, part of it to cities, and then counties. And then there's other areas where that money goes to, like special districts and things like that. So everybody is constituents. I thought this example would be a good one. Now, if you take that technology money, right, that gets spent, it equals about $400 a citizen in the US. $400 a year per citizen goes to support state and local government technology spending. Now, if you look at shared service organizations, I know the majority of us that are on this call are probably in these shared services organizations, but that shared service organization gets a chunk of that money, right? So it's kind of whittled down here. So it's roughly about a third of the overall technology budget ends up in that shared service organization. And then if you look at some actuals, right, if I go out and I look at actuals and I pull the state, a city, and a county, and these are basically the budgets that they're getting in those state, city, and county. So it's pretty proportional to the population, is the money that they'll get for shared services. So if you look at your area, your company, there'll probably be some division like this and some financials that you can get to, or a lot of times that the executives have gotten to, and they understand this. I've talked to a couple of CIOs that have consultants come in just to tell them what they're spending on shared services and then how it's split up. And so if we look at these in a portfolio perspective, I'm going to take that money that's across all three of these areas and kind of carve it up right now so that we can look at how it would be formed if we were to structure around digital products. So we talked about the technology that you're spending money on: hardware, software, IT services. So this is a an area, and I'll give you at the end where I got this information. If anybody's interested in the data, I could certainly provide links to that, and I'll have that at the end of this deck when I provide it to you. But if you look, about 2/3 of that $581 million goes to technology. And this is, again, we're only talking about shared service money now. We're not talking about the money for customer services or employee services, just the shared service area. And then the rest of that $581 million goes to the talent. So basically, we're hiring people to get value from this stuff that we're buying, right? Because this stuff is worthless if you don't have the technologists to squeeze the value out of it. And so that's really what they're there for. Now, if you look at what they're trying to do, and again, we're just focused on that shared service chunk right now, not the whole IT budget. So what we're there to do is build these shared and foundational services. Like a lot of you are working on ITSM, that's typically going to be a foundational service so that we could go ahead and manage the health of all of the applications or all the services we're offering. And then there's this, sometimes this is split out, and there's some debate on whether we split this out or it's all combined into one. But it's the factory. What is the process someone goes through to create a new service or to improve on an existing service? So if you look at the shared services, they spend all their money on these two things, right? That's what they're doing. They're trying to build a better machine, a more well-oiled machine to support the services and digital products that we deliver. So those two areas are really mission support for what we're really trying to do, is provide services to our customers and provide services to our employees so that we can support our employees. But right now, we're going to really focus on this chunk and then developing digital products here so that we can set some context for going forward. Is there any questions so far? I see some people introduce themselves. Okay. If there's any questions, if you can just drop them in there. Now, we have a lot of organizations that are on this call that have already switched to digital products. So we will have them on in the next few weeks, and I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Right now, if we start looking now, we say, okay, we're supporting these portfolios for the factory and the shared and foundational. If we look and go into that a little deeper, we want to look at how do we improve this, right? And the way that industry has improved it, if you look at the
excuse me a sec. I threw a question in the chat, but I'm guessing that with everyone doing intros, they'll get missed. Can you define a digital product?
Sure. A digital product in the context that we're talking about, and that's a great question. I meant to put a slide up here for that because there's a lot of confusion there because it's defined differently all over the place. At ServiceNow, we use more of the IT for IT definition. So it could be a service grouped together with an application. It could be two services and an application. It could be a mixture of other digital products that are together. Like if you consider CSM a digital product that you're buying from ServiceNow, you can combine that to make it a digital product for your organization. So the digital product in this context, and it could be hardware as well. So in the CSDM, we define all the different things that are product models, and those are the three things. So it could be that application, which is more of a software model underneath CSDM. Could be a piece of hardware, or it could be a grouping of those things. Like if we have a laptop service, or if we say there's a gold, silver, and bronze laptop service, the product is a wrapper around all those services, and then all the applications it takes to deliver those services. So when we say digital product, that means that there's some code base, there's some software somewhere, or some configuration that is needed to support that digital product, right? So if you're selling a brick online, it's not a digital product because the brick itself doesn't have software to it, right? But the e-commerce site has software to it, so it's a digital product. Right? So it could be any wrapper around those things that you make sense out of to sell back at either internally in the organization as a foundational product, or as a customer employee product. So I'll give you an example on the next slide. And if it still doesn't make sense, we'll stop again and kind of go over it. Okay. So that's what a digital product is like switching. The big thing we're talking about here is switching the way that we do things around that product, and really switching to the way that a lot of industry has moved. So how do we shift that shared service organization? How do we change them from being an organization that comes in and does projects and supports operations, right? And how do we change it to a digital product portfolio management organization? Sort of like all the big companies have done. Like I think Boeing is on this call. They did this shift a while ago, and there's some papers on that. There's a lot of other organizations that we work with on the open group, Ford Motor Company. I talked to Merck, and a lot of them have switched to this digital product portfolio management because all these things they're looking to do is hard. They're hard to do in this world, right? So if you want to improve the lifecycle management, you take all your technology and you wrap it into these digital product blocks. And then you're able to say, now there's a team in charge of that digital product. So you get the improved lifecycle management, you get a lot more dependencies. Like, what do we need to deliver that digital product? What is the total financial picture for us to deliver that? And then what's the value we're getting out of it, which are the services? And so there's a lot of accountability that comes with this too, because you're making sure that all the technology you have is being consumed in these digital products. And then when you go for investments, I used to be a product manager, and every quarter I would have to meet with all the executives, and I would say, look, this is what we sold of our product last quarter because it was a customer facing product. And this is what we can make if you give me this much investment to build these new features. And so there's a practice around the digital products where they're circular, it's continual investment. And what you're trying to do is really grow the base of the people that are using that digital product. And that's opposed to saying, hey, we're going to do a project and we're going to install that thing. And then later on, if we need to iterate on it, we have to spin up another project. Right? So it's more about that ongoing management of this series of products that you're keeping in that shared portfolio or the foundational portfolio, as opposed to saying that we're going to install something and then move on to the next project and the next project and the next project. Right? So there's ongoing ownership of the entire thing, right? Instead of just somebody owns the service, somebody owns the application, and it's all kind of spread out. There's kind of a top-down ownership of those products that you're building. If you look at Uber.
John, sorry, would it be fair this is Jeff Aldrich from Excel. Would it be fair to say that typically these products are sort of focused on providing some set of functional or business capabilities to the enterprise? They sort of own that whole end-to-end business of I provide, would it be customer relationship services? I'm making that up, but or if it's some sort of back-end service, but that's what these products are organized around. It's all the stuff that goes into enabling the business to do X and define that X functionally as opposed to by a set of technologies or other toys.
Exactly. Yep. And you could package that any way you want to, right? Because you're the product manager inside your organization. And a lot of people think these are vendor products that you'll bring in. And then, you're just a manager for that vendor product. And that's not the case. We'll talk about how you can put these together and what it means to do real project portfolio management in your organization. But yeah, you're spot on there. And
it could be infrastructure stuff. So our network connectivity products.
Yes.
We have a product around providing network connectivity to everybody who needs it within our enterprise. That could be you could define a digital product around that. What does it all take to do? The services, the technology, the people, the processes, all wrapped together. You manage it as a unit as opposed to, like you said earlier, silos doing each of those different things independently.
You got it. Yeah. Yeah, you're creating like little mini businesses, right, that are just tasked with doing that. One I love to give as an example, I won't use it today, but is if you say that somebody's in charge of like an asset and configuration management product, and you go around and your job is to go to every organization and be able to manage their assets for them so that we don't have 55 different ways of managing assets within an organization. right? So you have that asset management product. Now, underneath it, you may have 5 or 6 different vendors that are helping you to manage those assets, but you're wrapping it all in this in the service, right? And you're managing the product, which is the combination of the technology you need to do it and the infrastructure you need to do it. That's all blind to the people that you're providing the asset management capability to. So let me give you an example here and see if we could talk. So in the shared service organization, what we're really looking to do is support a use case like this. And again, I'm using the government use case because it was public and we started with that. So public safety wants to digitize pay citation. So what they do is they go to the shared service area. And typically what shared service is doing is saying, okay, I can get you all the virtual machines you need for that. I can get you your IP addresses. I can get you your DNS entries. So the shared service organizations are really moving away from that because that low-level stuff is really far away from the value that they're looking to get, right? What they want to do is be able to manage a constituent request to pay public safety, right? To pay a public safety citation. So what we're trying to do here is get away from selling technology out of our foundational area to developing products that get closer to the value that our customers are looking for. So if this is a product we're managing, constituent request management, then what they're able to do is come in here and we skip all of the technology and we move right to the value package, right? To a higher value package. So in product management, that's one of the big benefits in these foundational product areas for shared services is you're able to package these things in any way you want to. So if they come in and ask for that, you're able to pass that back to the factory, right? So depending on the technology you've selected to do constituent request management, which again, public safety doesn't see any of it. They don't know that they're getting a server underneath this or an IP address. All they know is they're getting this constituent request management package, which comes with certain things. And we'll break out the package a little bit. But then they're able to interact with the factory, and the factory might say, well, we have a way to manage constituent requests, but we don't have a payment. So we have to do an integration, and then we're able to provide that pay citation. Now there's another product here that's managed. You're creating a public safety product with a pay citation service in it, right? So this might be a product here, and this might be the first service that product offers. So there's different ways to group it up here externally, but we're really focused on this internal delivery here, on what product management can bring in the shared service area. So this is kind of where you're, in that last screen, that $580 million, right, goes to building these types of things. And that's really what we want to improve on by moving to a product manager. So a lot of times what happens here is, and I see this with ServiceNow, where they'll come in and they say, oh, we can do that with ServiceNow, right? And you don't even want that because that's not getting close to the value. They're like, what the heck is ServiceNow and why should I use it? So you're starting from scratch. But here we're saying a product manager could manage that package because we know what our state or our county or our city in this case, we know the type of thing that they need. And we know how to get them 80% of the way there for all of these, in this case, constituent services, right, that they'd be coming in for. So building those packages is a way to use that product management to do it. Okay, so if we look at that constituent request management package, how would it be structured differently than what we're doing today? So the first thing you have to do is look at the team. And this is one of the concerns in organizations. A lot of times you don't have product managers. You have project managers and you have BRMs or business analysts, but you don't really have people that are product managers. So this is the people. And when you say determine pricing, a lot of times we're starting to do chargebacks, sometimes not, right? Those shared service organizations are sometimes attacks across all the other areas. And other times they're a chargeback where they have to recover the costs of the shared service organization. So that product manager has to deal with pricing in some way. and also costs, right? So they're having to determine what capabilities am I putting in this package that I could sell back to the rest of the organization so that they can use it either for employee services or customer services. Okay, so they're going to be measured on being able to assemble those packages so that they can increase the adoption. So a lot of times, like with asset management, people in ServiceNow will do asset management, and it's just for the IT team, right? And nobody else is able to use asset management. But if you have a product manager, right, their goal is to take asset management and maybe even roll that into configuration management so that you have more consumers of the product. So you're out there trying to sell that product and raise the subscription base of it. So there's an internal and an external role for a product manager. Now, if we're talking state and local government, you also need a liaison. So there's people that need to be able to understand that package that you created and be able to go outbound and talk to the organization about using it. So a lot of times now they're given the option, do I use that infrastructure networking stuff in shared services, or do I go out and buy that in the public space? And different departments can do that, right? We know that they can go out there and they can get a VM from Amazon, or they can, but why do we want them to come through us to get that? So this agency liaison is able to communicate that value. The architect, how do they use these higher value building blocks and not only iterate on the product that we're building for the customer, which in this case is that pay citation, and use the building block we had in shared services to fulfill that request, but how do we iterate on the shared service so that we're making it more valuable? And then the developer. So if we take a product manager, and a lot of times these aren't there today, and I know some people have this, so they might disagree with me. On the call next week, we'll hear some people that actually did this. But that product manager, what they're concerned with is the pricing and the capabilities. So here, what I said, it doesn't have to match the vendor, right? So if we come in and we say, look, here's all things that ServiceNow has that I can use. So I'm going to use the public sector core. I'm going to use the constituent experience. So these are vendor capabilities that I'm picking from. But the beauty of doing constituent request management is not to resell stuff you have, right? But also to bring in what you need. So in the case of a state, I would want to bring in like Payzen for my payment gateway and DocuSign, so I can build my constituent request package with a bigger set of things across the organization. You're not bound to any one technology. You're building the package, right? To get, like I said, to get those departments 80% of the way there when they talk about, hey, I need a new customer request. Well, we have this package that our product manager put out, right, that has all these things in it. So the product manager is out there saying, okay, what else do you need? Well, some of the stuff that I have coming in from my customers need to get signed. Well, how do I put DocuSign in that package so that every time we do a new service, we don't have to go and figure out our DocuSign integration? So that's the type of thing, when you get to product management, you're able to really focus on that value and the proliferation of that product throughout the organization. And
John, isn't this where it gets a little interesting with platforms, sub products or platforms that underpin? So that, there's probably a ServiceNow platform product owner, but obviously this product, the constituent request management product owner, is picking the things off that platform that they're going to be dependent on. They may change their mind later. They may say, hey, I get something better. I'm going to go over this other platform, but they can compose that solution using whatever platforms or services are available from for other product owners who are providing those, and then maybe adding some of their own pieces to the puzzle, and they can then make the choices over time to shift and move that technology base as appropriate to the business value and cost and efficiency and all that stuff.
Exactly. Yeah, a lot of that comes from like the service management area too, right? Where you just you kind of genericize the service so you can swap out whatever tech you want behind the scenes. Absolutely. And the same thing here goes too. Like if I, just using ServiceNow as an example, because we're all ServiceNow users, right? But if you're going down this list, you might just say that I'm just going to get some basic things out that I can explain. But longer term, I'm going to add on, playbooks, right? Or I'm going to add on process optimization. Like I'm going to do things that are increasing the value of that base package so that I can go back and all of those, like in a state, we have about 1,400 services. So if the state has 800 services on ServiceNow, if I improve the base, everybody gets improved, right? So if I do the integration with ChatGPT, if I do AI integration on these cases, everybody gets that AI integration, either on the agent side or the customer side. So the value here, right, is that you're doing these packages that are pretty consistent so that everything isn't a snowflake, right? And it's really hard to manage, and these packages help a lot with that. So thanks,
just
Jeff.
quickly from the discussion, there's a lot of talk about like product owner versus product manager. And I think I've kind of tried to address that and others have jumped in, but like those are roles. And I think one of the important things that John's talking about here is product management as a discipline. Those two roles, like if you look at SAFe or other frameworks, they have differing job role descriptions, and that's all kind of really dependent on how your organization works with whatever frameworks you're working with. When we're talking that bigger picture product management discipline, one of the really key areas as a discipline is when you're trying to do product management, the entities responsible for product management need to have visibility of fully loaded costs for the entire life cycle of that product, not just for like the initial stand-up project and not just for, hey, we're doing a special upgrade project, but they got to have that fully loaded cost of all those things from that earlier slide, the hardware, the telecommunications and all that, but also the people, the service delivery people. It's all the things that go into delivering that digital product, that digital service. And if they don't have control and visibility over that cost, to me, you're doing something other than product management. That's the key differentiator of this approach. And I think it's one that orgs have a really hard time giving up. They like putting lower level people in charge of and calling them a product manager or a product owner, but they're not giving up that budgetary control. They'll keep that with capital M management, that sort of thing. So think of it this is a discipline, it's a set of actions, and you can do product management with a variety of roles and you can power those roles differently. But how you tell you're doing product management, the discipline is budgetary control, visibility, accountability for value delivery to your customers.
Yep. Thanks, Charles. All right, so continuing on with that product manager, they have to be able to get these packages, and the big thing is explaining it, right? Explaining the value and making sure that you're communicating what's the outbound piece. So one of the ways to explain it is in the catalog, right? This is the constituent request management package that I'm offering, and we're charging a certain amount. And so if it's fulfiller based, like we're doing in ServiceNow, that's fine. If it's something else, right, you'll be able to explain that in a package. And that's basically the role of that product manager: create these packages and make sure that the organization can use them in the shared service perspective, and make sure that you have like more of them can consume them as you go. So most of in the shared services, you're building that catalog that can be consumed. We're talking about the people that communicate it. What they need to do is they need to be able to show it, right? So you have to give them the ability to go ahead and say, hey, this is what you get. So the three big things in a customer request would be, I would show them the customer portal. Like you don't have to build your own website. You're not going to get, a URL and a place to do it. We already have the website for you, and your request is going to land in that website that we already have, right? So all that stuff is kind of pushed away. It's not starting from scratch, getting, like a Drupal page or something like they do in a lot of governments, and then starting to build on top of that. The next piece is what happens when these requests come in. So like in the case of the agent portal, right? What does the agent see as these come in? And then on the analyst side, how do we measure that? And so the big focus of these liaison is to be able to show somebody this very quickly and explain it to them in the agency. So we're not explaining what ServiceNow is. We're not explaining what a constituent service is. We're not explaining all those pieces and developing this huge bill of materials that we typically have in a shared service organization. We're explaining what they need more directly in this package that we're able to manage. So one of the things you could do and one of the things I would do if I was product managing and they said, build this constituent request management. When you look at a timeline, I have to be able to deliver value faster. And that's what you're looking to do when you manage services. So what I would do is I would say that I'm going to build a 15-minute MVP. So once they filled out this constituent request form and said, I'm interested in that service, what my product would do is orchestrate a series of actions that happen anytime we build a constituent request. So I'd fill out the form, it would initiate a workflow, and that workflow would actually send an email to that person. In this case, I have report illegal hunting. It would send an email and says, here's access to your catalog item within 15 minutes of you pressing the button. So we don't need a developer in there to start building this, or we don't need 6 months of planning before we get you an MVP. We can send them an email that we already built that, because the base build is the same. You're going to take a request, you're going to put that request form in the catalog where the customer requests are, and then you're going to give that agent side. Right? So I could give them access in an email to all those things so that they could see what it looks like. I could say, you can go here and edit it. So one of these links would be to edit that. And then another one of the links would be, hey, here's the actual form as it sits today. It might not have all the fields you need in it right now to fill out that request, but here's all the plugins that, I put a map plugin so I can tell you where it is. So you can start to develop those checkboxes on your form so that you can build that base form for them automatically. Of course, in a dev environment, right? So that they could instantly see what they would actually be subscribing to. And that's the way a product manager could come in, instead of saying, hey, we implemented CSM on ServiceNow, or we implemented something else, and you can come in and request it. This is kind of giving them real-time feedback on their request. Now, if you look at the architect side, I'm going to give you a basic example. Like the architect could come in, and a lot of these things we get to afterwards. Like I know a lot of you on the call are talking about, how do we back into CSDM? How do we go to CSDM and take all the things we have and build a model around it so that we can support those things? Well, if you have this base package, you can automate those initial architecture diagrams. So what I could do is a series of steps here to actually build the business service and the service offering. And this is pretty easy to do once you know the technology that you're using on the back end, so that you have a common service data model representation for that product manager. They now know that I'm doing this for public safety, and public safety is using it. They have their own business service that they're providing, and they're using, whatever pieces you put in there, whether it's, Esri or DocuSign and ServiceNow, right? So all those pieces could be automatically attached because you built that package out. Now, this is an example of one of the models using a third party in ServiceNow, a designer view, right? But this is kind of what you could get. Is we talked a little bit last week around, don't design CSDM. There's no general model. It's like, who needs the picture? So in this case, we're developing a snapshot of that service that we're building. We're developing that snapshot for that product manager, right? So that they can see all the pieces and all the consumers. So that could land like this, right? Based off issuing these series of steps in a workflow to create that piece. And I know a lot of you, I've heard of people doing this before. So I think there is some automation around that modeling that's already done. I want to give you an example. This is one we walked through where we were saying, hey, we're going to do licensing and permitting, and we're going to do air quality. We're going to do an open burning permit. And then we started to say, hey, can we use the citizen request package to do that? And we said, yeah, but hey, this citizen request package only got us 20% of the way there, not 80%. So the architects start looking and they said, okay, what's unique or what's common across all these permits? Well, for every permit, I need to define whether it's a company or whether it's a consumer, an individual consumer. I need to go ahead and define a geographical area that I'm asking for that open burning permit in, right? So what we could do here is now that product manager says, hey, I have enough things in here that I can create another high value package, even higher value. Now I could create a specific permitting package so that when somebody comes in, instead of just giving them a constituent request, I'm now going a couple clicks up and building, somebody called it a higher block of Legos, where I'm already able to say that this is a specific type of request, which is permitting, right? And again, it has to, if you're going to have one customer that's going to consume that, you don't want to build the product. But, you know, some state governments, they'll have 3,000, 4,000 permits. So developing that package is a real high value item. So what you would see there is kind of like in our example in the beginning, right? They come to shared services, environmental quality needs that burn permit. And instead of going to constituent request management, we're able to filter them to a place in our catalog that's more license request management. And this is what the product managers they're looking to do, right? Is how do I grow my subscription base? So now they're looking to how do I develop these higher level packages? I might still need to go down here and get it specifically configured and integrated, but then I'm passing that burn permit back up to that environmental quality area. So that's what I mean with the architect, where they're iterating on this and this, right? There's other ideas that could come in here to extend that base package that you've created. So it's a continual learning and a continual development process instead of saying, right, like, hey, there's a new project we need because we're going to build out license request management. And then the project's done, and then there's no ongoing care and continual improvement on that, right? The product manager is going to make sure people are using this, or maybe I should get rid of it, right? We haven't had anybody request that in 9 months, or I'm not going to ask for more investment because I know we have 40 customers and there aren't any more to get, right? So I'm not going to invest in that. I'm going to look for maybe optimization so that I can reduce costs on that area and maybe spend it on something else where I can help more people from my shared service perspective. That's a lot of what product management brings in this area. Okay, developer, I'll go through real quick.
So before you go on, from the chat, there's a question here, and I'll read it out. Another big ambiguity around products in scope of digital products as a value delivery by a company and shelf-based products, i.e. Microsoft, Oracle. Specifically, if a company uses ServiceNow software asset management, I believe we'll have all benefited from better data model alignment of these on the platform, as well as their placement in CSDM. I interpreted that question as like there's kind of two classes of products. There's the products that we buy from other people, we're the consumers of, and we're using that. And we're using those products to then build and deliver our products that we're delivering to other people. And they're all products. It's just you're flipping the roles of who's the consumer and who's the provider there. And in part of my answer there, I said, I've heard that CSDM5 is working on better exploring that space, but I don't really know the details. And there was a follow-up question around, is there a draft of CSDM5 to be released soon, and how taxonomy there relates to business services. John, do you know anything about timelines or availability on CSDM5?
Yeah, there's a couple of videos out there on CSDM5 and where the digital products are coming in, but it's an ongoing discussion with Mark and Scott. And the part 3 of this, we'll be talking about a lot of that on where we're going with digital products, because I know a lot of you are trying to create these packages today, and it's hard when they group a lot of dissimilar things, right? Like trying to put an application together and a business service together in a service. You have to pick one or the other in CSDM4. So a lot of those barriers is what they're trying to remove in CSDM5. But I think in part 3 of this, we should be able to cover that with some of the experts. So I will, and I'll talk a little bit about those meetings as we go. I'll talk a little bit about how we get there and what's coming for that piece. We're also going to talk about IT for IT a little bit, because that's the standard where a lot of digital product definition is being incorporated. So we're getting more of a broader industry perspective than just ServiceNow from that committee, from that open group committee. So a lot of that will come together, the IT for IT stuff, and then that'll filter into CSDM. So we'll have those answers, but it won't be until 2 meetings from today. We'll have a better idea of that for you.
One more bit, there's a comment that the same applies to internal products. One digital product can utilize another internal digital product as part of its solution. Absolutely. I'll say that the key thing here is you got to get used to context switching in your brain, and how you understand that is you're looking for consumption behavior, like who's consuming something and who's providing that something. And that will help you figure out, like, the product is the something. And anytime you're seeing that consuming, providing that behavior, you can have a whole bunch of products in the mix that are consuming and providing this various mix of things. So it is confusing, it is recursive. Just focus on, you can figure out what the product is by watching consumption and value delivery and who's providing that sort of thing.
And one thing I wondered too, like if I'm a product manager and I'm doing like this burn permit thing, and I'm able to get one picture of a CSDM and it says, hey, these are all the licenses, like the business apps I'm using. Do I really need a digital product to define my digital product, right? If I could put it all in one, like, here's a picture of my digital product, which are all these pieces that's in that CSDM picture. And I don't care about certain things as that product manager, but I care about the contracts on my Esri contract, or DocuSign contract, or ServiceNow contract. I care about those. So I should care about the business apps. Business capabilities I don't really care about, so I don't need those, right? So I'm wondering, like today, there wouldn't be anything holding you back from representing all the pieces that make up your product. The objects, Mark will talk about the objects, and where you could be more explicit about that. But I think if you get the right picture, the right perspective of the common service data model, you can do that today on 4.0.
Yeah, and I think that's such a key thing, John. Like, when I work with customers around CSDM, that you've got this map, that picture with the blue and green and orange rounded rectangles and all of that, and it's daunting. You're always like, where do we start? You always start, or I advise you always start with the story you're trying to tell. And so it's always, you pick a viewpoint through that, and you pick the elements from that pictorial map that help you tell that story of, like, what do we need to do to support the burn permit service offering? Or what do we need to do? Like, what does my application depend upon, and who depends upon my application, when I'm trying to understand the difference between business and technical services. You don't go into CSDM with that whole vast array of potential entity types and try to do the whole thing at one time. You just start layering stories, and because they're all built on the common map of the CSDM, those stories build each other and they reinforce each other, and you get a more rich implementation as you go.
Right. Like, if I'm the product manager and I'm offering, let's say this, instead of ITSM here, let's say this is environmental quality, and the service offering is a burn permit. All I really need to know is this person that's providing this citizen request service. I don't need to know all the servers that are supporting it. So I don't want to see that, actually, because as long as I know that there's a product manager here taking care of this for me, I could stop there. But I also need to know the people that are taking care of the licenses for me for the applications, because if a license is going to expire up here, or there's some volume discounting that could come in because I'm growing my subscription base, I need to know that person. So this might be enough of the CSDM for that person to see. So I don't want to show them all those servers and everything else, because that's,
as long as it's abstracted behind a contract that meets your needs.
perfect.
If you have to trust and believe and have some sort of recourse, because you're betting your function, your product on that underlying product, and you make sure that they can meet your needs and not functional and non-functional requirements.
Yep, absolutely. And to your point before, Jeff, right, this could be ServiceNow, could be the product itself, right? ServiceNow, there could be a ServiceNow product owner.
There could be two levels. There could be sort of the ITSM product, and below that might be the ServiceNow product. You know, below that is infrastructure products, which are providing this, you know, or whatever the other case might be. It can get really recursive really fast, like Charles said, and that's hard to get people's minds around.
Exactly. And this is where I was like, if we go back to our portfolios in the beginning, at some level, there's going to be investment decisions. Now, this is probably too idealistic, but I put it up here anyway. But if you do have those foundational portfolios, like we talked about in the beginning, and we have constituent request management on there, the idea here is that there's some investment decision being made across all of your shared services, all of your foundational services, and some decisions made on what is our digital factory. And this is where platforms really come in, right? So I have a factory to work on GIS stuff and a factory to work on integrations. So how is that structured? But how are we making our overall decisions on our entire digital factory tool set? Like, how are we investing so that we're smarter about doing this? And we don't have, you know, 175 different ways of creating services. So that if we actually had people that manage the portfolios at these 4 levels, that would be a perfect world. Now, ServiceNow I have here because this is more of a ServiceNow governance structure, but typically we would push the ServiceNow product manager. And that's the way that I talk about this person is they're managing tenants on the platform. So they would manage, like ITSM would be a tenant, CSM would be a tenant, IRM would be a tenant, right? And there'd be product managers there could potentially be product managers of those that are making the offerings out to the public. So yeah, this gets daunting. Like, how do I do this the right way to get started? Right. When
this is actually a perfect example to talk about the shelf products and the products that we developed internally, right? If you take ServiceNow, the platform by itself, it's really something that we buy. And we care about licensing, we care about the performance, technology performance, reliability, right? All those good things about the ServiceNow as a platform.
Yeah.
But then when you go to ITSM or change management specifically, or one of those or IRM products, here you come with the stakeholders, with the value delivered, with the processes. Your level as a product manager or product owner is more abstract from a technology and really focusing on that value chain of delivery.
You got it.
So that's kind of, in my opinion, how I see it. It's, as you said, it's difficult for many of us to grasp that differences, right? Just content switching here, it's really important.
Yep. Like if you're the service manager product owner, your job is to get more people using the platform, right? And get them off of all those disparate things that are being used out there. And
to protect them all from each other, so that somebody doing something on the platform in HR doesn't mangle what people are doing in ITSM or field service or any other part of the platform.
Exactly. Yep. There'll be certain parts that demand to do that HR piece or to do the IRM piece that you'll get dragged into because it's a platform thing that they need. But you don't need to be involved in all of it.
John,
Now,
I've heard you speak about the service management office concept in previous presentations. How would you see that structure fitting in this slide here?
The SMO would usually fall under the factory. So this is the factory is the one that's actually taking in a lot of the requests and then being able to say, okay, what is our matrix? What's all the stuff we have in our toolbox? So how do we put that thing together? So the SMO, like creating services, or here we'd have more of products that might create services, right? But they're determined, how do I build that product, or how do I take that feature and make it part of an existing product, or do we need a new product, right? So I think that SMO ends up, the people that manage the output of the products ends up in that digital factory. And I was debating too with ServiceNow, like where does that go? I think like the ServiceNow, the way it would like part under foundational products because you're using the platform, and then part under the factory too because you're developing on the platform. So this is a part we'd have to kick around some more. And I know some people have actually done this. Some of the people that are doing digital product management today have done the restructuring to define these roles. And they're not necessarily positions, but they're roles. Now, somebody asked me later about, or earlier about a job. So if you click on these, I do have what a product manager does. And then there's a link here at the LinkedIn that I thought was really good that talks about some of the, the outbound part of that role. Like somebody said before, it's not really about the technology. It's about to build a product that a lot of people can use and get value from. So that role description is out on that LinkedIn. So if you just click on these roles, we'll have some descriptions around them. But this is where I usually start when we're doing an engagement for enterprise architecture. And then we get some more reality here, right? What do we need to do? Well, we're only building one digital product to try it out. So here I might say, look, I have the ServiceNow product manager, and then I have like an ITAM portfolio owner, right? And then underneath there, we have hardware. So it's going to look way different than this, but this is the basic idea, is where you want to get to, where the executives are able to make strategic decisions. The product managers and portfolio managers are all able to see that, and then kind of, bid on solutions with their product areas. So some of that will be driving the constituent portfolio, in our case, the customer portfolio, the employee portfolio, or like I said, the ones that most of us work on are the digital factory and the foundational products. I left some of the standard governance stuff in here. Some of you have seen this already, but how do those decisions get made? And then how do they get steered into either that strategy board, which is our top lines, or how do they get steered more into the technical execution part and land in the right spot? And that's where a lot of that accountability comes in. Who's making all these decisions? And a lot of times they're ping pong balls all over the place. So with the accountability, once you get the product structure set up, you're able to make a lot better decisions on, hey, this pushes up the strategy because it's a big investment decision, or to portfolio, more that demand board. That's kind of the SMO, I guess. A lot of that would fall into the SMO or the PMO area. And then the technical board down here. And then there's charters for each of these. This is available online, but I put it in the deck just in case. But it shows, for the accountability, the frequency of the meetings. So this is usually 1 a quarter on the executive level, and then the people that should be involved. And then same with the demand board, meets a little bit more frequently. And then the technical governance board, which meets even more frequently, right? There's a lot more of this that happens, depending on the rate of change in your environment. All right, so the next 2 meetings, I wanted to just set the foundation today, but we will have a specific conversation on, Charles started to go into this a little bit today, and this is not an area that I'm an expert in, so I'll be learning on this along with you guys. But it's really to talk about how does the financial piece change, and Charles was involved in that before, so hopefully he'll be one of our speakers on this. We also have, I'm going to reach out to Dan Warfield, who's a publisher of some of the standards around digital products. And I've worked with him and taken some classes from him. So hopefully we'll get them to come in and talk to us more about that. And then we have Proven Optics, and they have taxonomies that they developed around the financial perspectives on digital product management, and a little bit about how it's different than traditional service management. From there, this is the part I talked about where I'm hoping to get Mark on here, where we can talk about the CSDM and where it's going to support digital products. And then also on IT for IT and how that's feeding into the CSDM. There's a lot of overlap there, but I like IT for IT because it really gives, to do digital product management well and manage digital portfolios well. There's 7 value streams in here that tell you everything I should do during the evaluation phase, during the delivery phase. So the value streams will go through each of those phases and tell you IT for IT tells you you need to do, but it doesn't tell you how to do it. That's the way I like to look at it. So it tells you all the things that a full product management organization, all the steps that they would do to go through and achieve all those benefits of doing product management instead of project management. Okay, so that's November 9th meeting. We'll get to more of that meat that you were asking for before.
There's also been some questions about getting the slide deck, and earlier I promised at the end of the meeting you'd tell how people can get the slide deck.
Okay. Now I'm going to put this out. I always put it out on our YouTube channel. I'm not going to go through all the references in here because we're almost out of time, and I'll get to what Charles was saying real quick. We do this. Everybody on the call who's a customer has an architect. Charles is one, and I am one. So when we come in, we're able to help you just start breaking these down a little bit and seeing, is it really worth it? Do I want to do one? Or are my executives just clamoring to do, to move to digital products? So all that stuff, we can help you talk about that. This is a little bit about the group and what we're here to do. It's more not to talk about individual products on ServiceNow, but really to focus on the core of digital product and service delivery. And that's what we see as foundational to digital transformation. So we do have these calls every 2 weeks. And what Charles was just talking about here, I'm going to take this and actually stick it in but this one page will get you to where you can get all of the previous meetings, all the recordings, as well as all the material that was shared during the meetings. So this deck, along with a video, will be posted at that URL. By Wednesday of next week, we'll have it up there. So there's about 30 meetings out there that we've had over the last 2 weeks, the 2-week increments. So they're all out there on this forum as well. So most of the time you'll see and then there's a link to our shared instance on there. So if you want the shared instance, some of the demos we do will be in that shared instance, and I can give you all that as well. Any other questions, Charles, that I missed? I think
we've caught them all. If we didn't, please speak up.
All right. Yeah, and the hope here is that you'll take these slides and use 1 or 2 of them that make sense, right? And that's our real goal here. And when we share decks like this, is for you to be able to take them. So I won't put it out as a PDF. It'll be a PowerPoint, so you can rip slides out and use what you want and change what you don't want. But all right.
Hey, John.
Yeah.
Just a little note. This is Etta. We so appreciate you. I love coming to these when I can, because there's always a topic. We always learn something. You're not trying to sell us anything. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Looking forward to getting you on here too, Etta.
Yes.
All right. And everybody else has anything, let me know if you want to get involved in any of these meetings. If you have a financial perspective, I'd love to hear from you, because I can only give you the theoretical stuff. We need to grab other people to give you the actuals, like people that have been there and done it. So definitely, like Etta, definitely looking to hear from you as well. All right. Thanks, everybody. And we'll talk to you in a few weeks.